We are back for an in-season edition, the first one since the Stanley Cup Finals here on Total Hockey Now, on the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel. I am at Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard, and as always, my line mates, very busy Anthony Rivera at Ant Rivera 86. I don't see any gray hairs from the Mets postseason run yet. They're probably coming. And then Fuzzy Chris down there, fresh off of dropping Samuel Montembeault off at the tailor to get his Vezina suit tailored for when he wins at the award ceremony in June. So good to have you both. You both made it on time.
Yeah, no gray hairs, but the playoff beard is in full effect, and hopefully there's at least one more week that I can have this beard at the very least, I'd like to say.
Yes, and let's Subway to Shea podcast. If you're following the postseason, Ant's got some great content over there. Dodgers up 2-1 in the NLCS. Hopefully the Mets even it up tonight.
Yes, sir, definitely. I missed you guys last week, and I saw you have all that fun playing Puck Doku. You guys finished it. A lot of good stuff happening. I will say this, as fun as it is that hockey's back this season, I got to say I do like our off-season coverage, and make sure next year when you guys are done with the season that you continue to be along with us, because we just don't end. We don't end.
No, we might take an occasional week off, but yeah, I agree. The summer with the mock drafts and the odds and all that in the future, it's a lot of fun, but it's also great to have hockey to talk about as well.
Yes, we have a lot of things to cover. We have some teams that we have to talk about. There are some teams that are being called into the principal's office because this is unacceptable from some teams here. So, and, I brought my notes. These teams better get ready.
Principal Merez in the building, and you're going to get the page over the intercom that goes throughout the school to let you know when it's your turn. Now, again, we'll go over this later. It's early in the season. You can't read too much into things, but there are a couple of teams where you look at them and go, no, there's a problem there. That's not just it's a small sample size. It's like, no, there's issues there. But we'll get into the Avalanche later. Other things we'll get into, we're going to do a little fantasy hot or cold. We're going to take 6 players. Their hot start, can they sustain it or maintain a similar pace, or is it fluky? For guys that are off to a cold start, is this, just a slow start, or is this cause for concern? We'll do that. And then, of course, we talked about the Avalanche. But first, we got to get into NHL news here. And we got Leafs are winning the President's Cup. Bobby there in the chat. And, I don't necessarily I'm on the Leafs bandwagon this year in terms of other teams besides mine. I think the Leafs will go deep. We've established that. We're not going to talk too much about them today. But first and foremost, let's get to some NHL news here. Quick hits. And first and foremost, it's got to be mentioned. I don't want to have the show on too much of a down note, but it does need to be acknowledged that, everything that went on in Columbus the other night with the opening home opener for the Blue Jackets, and, everything from the 13-second, face-off with no left wing for the Blue Jackets to the Panthers players coming in with the purple Gatorade and Skittles, which was a favorite combo of Gaudreau's apparently. Just kudos to both organizations on doing as best as you can in a situation like that, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think the NHL just as a whole has done a great job in honoring these two Gaudreau brothers, and it all capped off with the ceremony in Columbus. I thought it was fantastic. I know his wife was there with the kids, and she's also pregnant still. So, what a nice, stirring rendition for this event. I think they did a great job.
Yeah, and it was only fitting that Sean Monahan scored a goal. The script writers for the NHL clearly were on point there, but it's still so sad that that Johnny doesn't get to be here and experience opening night and play the sport that he loves. And I have no idea how that family continues to just wake up every day, go into it. And I can't imagine the strength it took to be there. But yes, kudos to the NHL, kudos to both organizations, and, good on them.
Good on them. And yeah, the fans too, they were panning around the arena and just like, who was in tears or who just, it didn't matter if they had a Panther jersey on or a Blue Jackets jersey on. Like, and the fans were great too, and just all that. Hey, and then tonight they play the Buffalo Sabres at home. Tonight they'll treat this as what would have been a normal home opener, night one. Tonight they'll do those festivities. I'm sure it'll be a little more subdued than your typical, home opening night is what is essentially that is. But kudos to both organizations. Now, breaking news out of today, Jake Oettinger signs an 8-year extension worth $66 million. The 26-year-old is now under contract through the 2032-33 season at an annual hit of $8.25 million. The deal comes on the heels of Jeremy Swayman inking the same exact contract and term. So as a Ranger fan that is worried about where the Shesterkin contract is going to go, this was at least some good news that Oettinger didn't get like $9 million and go above Swayman, because then that's just driving him up. So at least that maybe keeps his asking price, status quo. But good on Oettinger, good on Dallas. Realize they've got a guy that they can count on between the pipes there, and locking him in for the long term.
I think when we did the show, I don't know if it was last week, that the contract negotiations came out between Igor and the Rangers. What was the number that he turned down?
$11 million per season, and he basically backhanded that away like a fly.
And I think you said he wanted 12, right? Like somewhere around 12.
I mean, we don't know that number, but I mean that's probably where it's going to have to start.
Yeah.
If he kicked the $11 million to the side, it's not because he wants 11 and a half. You know what I mean?
And Igor's great. I mean, but you look at a guy like Oettinger and Swayman, like this kind of favors the Rangers a little bit, I would say. These two are both very good goalies. I think Oettinger went in our fantasy draft. I think he either went first or second when we did our Total Hockey Now draft, which you guys can check out on YouTube. So, I mean, great contracts for both of these guys. Chris has mentioned how much, these guys have deserved the money. And my question is like, if you had the opportunity to sign either of these guys to the contract, which one are you taking? Are you taking Oettinger or are you taking Swayman?
I would probably take Oettinger here. He's proven a little bit more. I think that's a very fair deal for him, for the Dallas Stars. I'm glad they also pounded this out pretty quick. Maybe, Jake just said, hey, can I have one of whatever Jeremy had? And the Stars are like, sure, here, let's just get that. So there was no reason to drag this out. There was no reason to make this a problem. I think both sides understood that they wanted to get it done. There was common ground. Bada bing, bada boom. Here we go. So good for the Dallas Stars for getting that done. Jake Oettinger's off to a good start. So everybody wins here.
Jake Oettinger was the first goalie taken in our draft, round 2, pick 7 by Wally Geis. So there you go there. But then, and then Swayman went the following round, about a round later. For me, I would take Oettinger just because he's a known commodity versus Swayman. We haven't seen him with the full season workload yet. So I know exactly what I'm getting for $8.25 million there. And hey, maybe Swayman is a better goalie. Maybe Swayman becomes the top goalie in the league in a couple of years. But at least I know with Oettinger, I have a top 5, no worse than a top 10 guy locked in for like the next 8 years. So that's where I'm going. So there we go. So Dallas, getting their goaltending situation locked in. Couple of milestones last night. Sidney Crosby passes 1,600 career points, a 10th player to hit that milestone in a 1-goal, 2-assist effort, including the overtime game winner against Buffalo. That also includes him setting up Evgeny Malkin's 500th career goal. How appropriate that he has to have the assist on that one. And related news, Alexander Ovechkin became the 60th player to reach 700 career assists, which is more than I thought he had, just like, off the top of your head. He's got 853 career goals. So those 3 guys are kind of forever will be linked, the 3 of them. And it's kind of cool to see them hit milestones within a night of each other.
Yeah. How fitting is it that Crosby assists on Malkin's 500 goal? Those two have now played 19 years together. The consistency for both of them. The same thing with Ovechkin. Like we got to witness some of the greatest players to ever play the game for the last 20 years. And like, I don't think it's hit yet that one day those 3 individuals will not be in the NHL, but it is great to be able to experience everything that they have given to this league, because they have been nothing short of excellent, both on and off the ice. You never hear a bad thing about Gino. You never hear a bad thing about Crosby, for sure. You never hear a bad thing about Ovi. It's always, they represent their club on the ice to the highest level, and they also do the same off the ice. So good for them.
Credit I'll give to Ovechkin too is early in his career, he had a reputation of a guy that wouldn't be caught dead back checking. We all saw that in that there was that Rangers playoff series, one of the many times they met where somebody like put in like the controller unplugged, like, graphic on him back skating to get back on a play where the Rangers had scored, and he comes cruising in a few seconds later. He's come a long way from that, and that was again, sometimes guys have one knock on them and they can never get by it. Shaquille O'Neal free throw shooting, that was Ovechkin's, and that was the one thing he had to improve on, and he did, and he became a complete player. And yeah, like you said, it's going to be weird to watch these guys retire, because like the guys I watched growing up, like you see them retire, it's like, all right, these were guys that were in the league before I started paying attention. Now I can remember the first time I saw the Rangers play Crosby, the first time I saw them play Ovechkin, and it's like, wow, like these guys are coming to the end.
I have never seen Ovechkin play in person, and I feel like I feel like that's unfortunate. I mean, I've seen Sid and Malkin play. I saw them in Pittsburgh in 2014, I believe so. But I have never seen Ovi in person. And I feel like I got to get that done before he retires and takes his ship back to Russia, because I feel like I'm missing out a little bit there. Like I have time for McDavid and Draisaitl, and obviously those tickets are quite hard to come by in Montreal, but I feel like I need to see Ovi play and just, experience the greatness that is him.
That sounds like a game you need to catch this year.
Yes.
If somebody wants to send over a brown envelope, first of all, like $500 Canadian is like $37 US. So if you guys just want to send that over, that'll be good. Or somebody listening here has season tickets and they don't know what to do with themselves, or they're busy that night, or their car breaks down, I'll take them off your hands for you. I can do that for you.
The player I'll compare that to in my own personal situation was I had never seen Barry Bonds, and then the last year that Shea Stadium was going to be open and Bonds was getting close to the end, and the Giants came to town. I'm like, that's a player I got to go see. So like, not even a Met fan, but I'm like, no, like if I'll regret not, say what you want about the steroids and stuff, but like that's still a guy I want to go see. Take a couple of swings of the bat and maybe get lucky and catch him hitting a home run. So. Ovechkin, everybody should
see it at Yankee Stadium when he hit that monstrous home run that he did.
That's right. I forgot about that one too. I mean, the Giants didn't come to Yankee Stadium. I could count on them going to Shea every year, whereas Yankee Stadium, the way the rotation worked, they might come through and then not come through again. Now it's different because now they have the balanced schedule. Everybody plays everybody. But so yeah. And now with the A's moving, I'm going to see plenty of Yankees Giants games because that's going to be my only option. So there we go. One last thing to get to before we get to the fantasy focus segment. We talked about goalies a little while ago. Philip Gustafson becomes the first goalie in Minnesota Wild history to score a goal. It was also his first ever career goal. Did it against the Blues. He's the 15th goalie to do it, and the first since Tristan Jarry in 2023 against Tampa Bay. It's also just the third power play goal scored by a goalie. Yevgeny Nabokov and Martin Brodeur were the two to previously do that. It's a great time when you're down, you got a power play and you got to pull the goalie, you get the 2-man advantage, but that'll happen once in a while. Literally once in a while. It happens.
Does the Brodeur one stand the test of time since it was in the playoffs?
I feel like that's a meaningful one. Yes. I always love when I feel like goalies should take more shots at the goal, just especially when it's empty, just rocket it down there. Like, why spend like $11.5 million on Austin Matthews, who has one goal to start the year, when you could just get it from Philip Gustafson for a fraction of the cost, right? I heard that the Leafs are going to the President's Cup. They should just get Philip Gustafson out there. Maybe he can take some winders from the point, but it is always fun to see a goalie, especially if you have him in fantasy. Fantasy hockey should give you credit for the goalies scoring goals, and it should be like one of those things where you get like a ton of them, because it doesn't happen very often. But I want to see more of it. I want to see goalies really firing the puck at net.
And yes, I mean, there is that moment of excitement where like, it's a chance and the goalie's itching to do it. And there's that like split second where the puck's in a good position and you see him getting ready and you're like, all right, here it comes. But it doesn't get to happen too often. Now, just on a related note to that, people be like, oh, how could professional players not hit an empty net? It is very hard to hit an empty net from about 170 to 200 feet away when the other team's got an extra skater on there too. So like, when people are like, oh, how can you, it's like, go on the ice and try and do that without somebody breathing down your neck, and then try and do it while somebody's trying to breathe down your neck.
I will say this. It is 100% harder to scored an empty net from length ice, right? As somebody who plays hockey, it is exceptionally hard. Goalies are also, they don't have they're not out there to score goals. They don't have the sticks for it. They're they got to use a glove to do it. It is 100% harder to score a goal as a goalie than it is for a kicker in the NFL to kick a field goal.
I mean,
I'm
I don't
just
know
gonna say
a conversation. I mean, it's not like
I'm
the
just
Jets
saying. Imagine kickers missing kicks in football. That's your one job. That's all you have to do is put it through these uprights. And imagine being sub 80% at that. Like you have one thing to do. Goalies are not out there to score goals. They literally have a whole bunch of other things they got to do. Right. So it is hard to score a goal from 200 feet. And like you said, there's a whole bunch of players moving. You got to get the height. It's got to get the distance. Got to be on target. You got guys rushing you. Yeah, you got all that thing here. And meanwhile, you have kickers just missing left. And you're like, all right.
Chris, you're hitting a sour spot for Adam over here. I mean, his kicker is struggling.
Yeah, the Jets let one go, a key divisional game go on Monday night. Thanks, Greg Zerline. Appreciate that. I'm just
saying, kickers missing kicks, wild.
Over 50, okay, fine. That's a tough kick to make. Although I feel like nowadays kickers' ranges are getting longer and longer. But yeah, anything under 45, you got to have a high success rate on. That's your job.
I'm just saying, if a fan can kick a 50-yarder, like some of them do it, and I understand they've had some practice up, but you could dress a fan in goalie equipment and give him 100 shots from one end of the ice to the other in an open net. Might. And it'll be a tough one. I'm just saying kickers do better.
Yeah. Listen, I don't disagree, although you're a Falcons fan. You've got a good kicker. Koo's pretty good.
He is fantastic. He needs to continue to do that. I just don't get how kickers miss 35-yard chip shots to the left.
I
don't have a good one apparently, but you two guys have good kickers on your team.
Yeah, the thing is, our kicker is the best player on the team. that's never a good thing.
Yeah, Brandon Aubrey should not be the top Cowboy at any point. One of the maybe, but not the. So there we go. So there's NHL headlines. Let's get a little fantasy focus in here. Do a little fantasy focus. Hot and cold starts. And I do want to acknowledge two things before we start. And I mentioned this in the tweet. Darcy Kemper, I'm not worried. It's day to day. He did just get lit up like a Rockefeller Center Christmas tree against Ottawa the other night and still managed to win somehow. And it's a Riddick Copley duo for now. But there will be a meltdown because of the amount of shares I have in him if he gets hurt long term. So just be ready for that. That's coming.
For me too, it's crazy that Jake Allen is the better goalie at this moment in time in New Jersey.
First guy to beat 33 teams in the NHL or something like that. There you go.
Jake Allen has to play 40 games so that I think that conditional pick becomes either a second. So we're big fans still here in Montreal of Jake Allen. We need him to play a lot. No excuses for the Devils, right? We have already established that. But I would like Jake Allen to play more. Also, it's not a question of if Darcy Kemper gets hurt. It's a question of when, because that's usually how it goes with him. I've limited my exposure to him. I think I have him in one league, and that's more than enough for me. But it's just a question of if. It's a question of when, not a question of if with Kemper. He's going to fall apart. He's basically a Land Rover. It's going to fall apart. You just hope you get rid of it before it does.
Exactly. Maybe I'm hoping we could get one more season out of this guy. That's all I want. I don't have him in any keeper leagues. I just have him in redraft leagues. Not panicking yet is what I'm saying, even though it sounds like it. Anyway, also, I'm not putting Connor McDavid's slow start on this list. Come on now. We're not going to talk about, we're not worried about Connor McDavid's production. So
don't we remember Edmonton got off to the absolute worst start and then had the absolute best middle half of a season and then are all the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup? Yeah. We're not worried about Connor McDavid.
He's just giving the rest of the league a head start so that he can then, once he puts up 135 points, people will be like, well, I mean, he had a terrible start and look at him. So it's very nice of Connor to let the rest of the peasants in the league get a couple of points before he just goes on a 20-point heater in 6 games.
It'll happen. It's coming. So let's talk about, we got 6 players lined up that we're actually going to talk about here. First up, we talked about him earlier in the show. Evgeny Malkin, 2 goals and 9 assists, 4 power play goals to open the season here for Pittsburgh. Are we thinking this is production that can, and obviously not at this clip, but are we thinking that Malkin is, and my philosophy is if he's healthy, he produces. He might have his lows here and there, but as long as he's on the ice, he's going to be putting goals in the net. He's not a guy I'm like going out and targeting in fantasy right now, but he's a guy I'm looking at that if I can maybe get in a throw in, or maybe if I get him on the cheap or something, you could do worse than him. And he's fixed into that Pittsburgh top 6.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think his production when he's on the ice is right there. But like, Darcy Kemper, it's like, is he going to get hurt? Is he going to stay healthy? That's the thing with Malkin. So if he could stay healthy, I agree just like you that I think that his production is going to be good enough.
I mean, you should probably just pencil him in to miss like 20 some odd games. It's just what Malkin is right now. He, and it's through no fault of his own. He's getting a little bit older. He's still a big boy and he still throws his weight around, not as much as Ovi, but it's one of those things that if you can, like, if he gives you 60 points in 60 games, you got a point per game player. That is what it is. That's probably where his ceiling is. So can he maintain it? Sure. But just be aware that he's going to get hurt. So if anything, if you own him in a fantasy league, I would try to cash in on that check now. Like I would try to see if I can bump that up to somebody else and say, hey, let's maybe trade Malkin for somebody who's struggling off the start. See if you can kind of get some value for there, because like I said, he's going to get hurt. It's just, you're hoping it's later rather than earlier. Or if it is later, you're hoping it's not something that lingers into your fantasy hockey playoffs, because that's probably the worst time for him to get hurt. So it's a good start, but I would look to cash in.
And we talk about his health. The last 2 seasons, he did make it through all 82 games, 27 and 40 last year, 27 and 56 the year before that. So maybe a little bit of decline if you're trying to say like, nah, that's the argument to sell for him, sell high. I think, maybe something's going to happen with Pittsburgh this year. I don't know. Like they just, they've got the vibe I thought they might have had last year. Maybe they're going to develop that this year, but we'll see. So that's Evgeny Malkin. Let's stay in the Keystone State. Let's go to the other side. Matvei Mishkov right now. He's got 2 goals and 1 assist to open the season. Both of those power play goals. We've already heard John Tortorella say he's not a savior. We can't, let's not put that much pressure on the kid, but there's not a ton of, sources of offense on the Flyers. And if Mishkov can really be that go-to guy, and yes, like he's going to have his growing pains, teams are going to key in on him at some point, and he's going to have to fight through that. But I don't know. He looks pretty energetic to start the season.
Yeah, I was so upset I didn't get him during the draft this year, especially after kind of getting him throughout the whole mock drafts that we did. But he will go as far as John Tortorella will let him go. That's basically how I feel. He's got the talent. He came from KHL, right? So that's like, that's a top league there. And I think he's got the talent to play here. It's just, what we're dealing with John Tortorella and how he handles his players. He already downgraded it with that comment you made, making him not sound like, it's not much, but we'll see what he could do. Already 2 goals and 1 assist. That's a good start for him and whoever has him on his fantasy team or their fantasy team.
I think he can definitely produce, right? Like some people were worried that he wasn't going to be able in the NHL, but like you said, he played in the KHL. The KHL is a professional men's hockey league. Like there are men there. He's not playing against boys. He's not playing against kids. He's playing against grown men. So, he's come to the NHL. He's looked good. He's been implicated. He doesn't look like he's out of space here kind of thing. He deserves to be there. But again, if the league will catch up to him at some point, right? And then he's going to go through his growing pains because he is a rookie, and that's just how this league works, right? The NHL is the best league in the world for a reason. People are going to start keying in on him. And once it starts to get difficult, that's when you're going to see if he can overcome it, if he can still play well. If he still plays well and he's responsible in his own zone and he does all the things that John Tortorella likes, then maybe it doesn't hurt him as much. But if he starts getting into the doghouse, if he starts to end up being a healthy scratch, play like 10 minutes a night, then it's going to be tough. So for Michkov, it's consistency here. He's got to be consistent, whether the points come or not, right? They'll be there. If you work hard, they'll come. But he can't get away from what's making him successful to start the year, because if not, like once you're in Tortorella's doghouse, it's extremely hard to get out of.
You can get out of it. It just it takes a lot more work to get out of it than it took to get into the doghouse. And here's the other thing with Michkov: when they do start keying in on that line a little more with Frost and Tippett, he's on that top power play unit, so he's gonna, even if he can't eat at even strength for a little while, he'll get his opportunities and capitalize somewhat on the power play there. So good upside with Michkov. Now, guy's gotten off to a little bit of a cold start here. Mr. Carter Verhaeghe, only 1 assist on the season so far. When I was looking at his game log from last year, because we know the level of production he provides. He had a couple of stretches where he went 2 games without a point, and 1 stretch where he went 3 games without a point. But other than that, he pretty much produced consistently and had at least a point per game throughout. So, Florida's only a few games into the season. If this starts to become more of a extended slump, then I'll worry. But, another game or 2 for me, jury's still out, because he's the type of guy that he'll just start putting it in the net soon and start producing.
I actually felt like this Florida team would kind of start off slow this season, considering that they went to back-to-back Stanley Cups and the toll that just takes on your body as a player. I have no doubt that he'll play up to his expectations. I think it's just a slow start for me.
He's a great buy low candidate, right? I mean, he's a very consistent hockey player. We know that. And like, Matthew Tkachuk has been out here due to illness. That's obviously not great. Alexander Barkov with the injury, that's also not great. So, like, there's some significant pieces missing in Florida, and that just means that teams don't have to respect the others that are around him. No offense to the other guys skating there, but nobody is Matthew Tkachuk or Alexander Barkov. So I think once those guys get back into the lineup, Barkov is an elite passer. He moves the puck around. Verhaeghe plays with him on a line. The same thing for the power play. You get good movement from those guys. So it might take a little bit, but I'm not worried about Carter Verhaeghe. I don't think that would be fair. If anything, like I said, I'm trying to buy low on him. I'm trying to see if someone started to panic, and I'll gladly take him at a discount.
If you did want something to worry about in Florida, it's their depth, which is already pretty exposed right now. So that's going to be an interesting thing to follow as the season goes on. So there's Carter Verhaeghe. We got a couple more players to go before we get to the Colorado Avalanche. First up, we'll talk about a former Panther here, Jonathan Huberdeau. Jonathan Huberdeau right now out of the gate, 3 goals and 3 assists. But the first thing that jumps out at me is he's shooting at 50% right now. That is not going to be maintained. That being said, can Jonathan, he's never going to go back to being a 30-80 guy like he was a few years ago with Florida. Can he be like for him, it would be a good season, a 25-40 guy? Can he get back to that level? I think so, maybe.
I forget what his point total was to start the season. I know I took the over on it. I talked about this, and obviously he's not going to shoot 50% because it's Jonathan Huberdeau. He's going to regress quite a bit, and that's from a goal scoring standpoint, and that is fine. He's also playing on the third line, which is like, it's okay. Maybe that's sheltering him a little bit, but that's not where I want him to be. He is an elite passer, and that won't change. So as long as the guys around him stay healthy and can find the back of the net, I think Jonathan Huberdeau is going to be just okay. I expect him to pump anywhere over 50 assists. I think his over-under was like 56.5 points. And I think he can easily be a 50-plus assist guy. The problem is it's the Calgary Flames, right? And I get that they're off to a good start, and that's all handy-dandy and unicorns and butterflies, but like, that's a facade, right? Let's not pretend that the Calgary Flames are legitimate here. They should not be the best team in Alberta. So they will regress, as they should, and Jonathan Huberdeau's shooting percentage will regress as well. But this is definitely a good start for him. Again, another great sell high candidate. If you can find somebody who's willing to buy some Jonathan Huberdeau, I would ship that out quite fast.
Yeah, I agree here. Look, his production dipped by half from his time in Florida to his move to Calgary. I was drinking the juice when that all started. Not anymore. I don't think that this is going to last throughout the whole entire season.
If you're in a league that values, in a category league where you can use some help with assists, then that's a guy to consider maybe. I mean, he's on the point on the first power play. But yeah, like I think he can be a 25-45 kind of guy. Like that's where he's at right now. And obviously the Flames are going to cool off, but at this point, there's no pressure on him to produce because everybody already has put all that pressure on him and have been disappointed. So now we're in that, like, whatever you get out of him, you get out of him. So maybe he's playing a little looser and a little freer. Not everybody's gotten over the fact that, okay, this is what Huberdeau is at this stage in his career. So we'll see there. 2 more guys to go here. Let's stay in Western Canada. Elias Pettersson, 1 assist to start the season. This is a guy we talked about in mock drafts where none of us really crazy on him. And then we got some comments, on the YouTube's page that like, oh, he's better than you guys give him credit for, blah, blah, blah. I would buy low on him. I think, if you can get hands on him, I think Vancouver, he's there. I don't know. I just think he's a good buy low candidate right now. I don't think this is going to sustain. I think he's okay.
I would buy more on Pettersson than I would Huberdeau. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like you said, I think his production has been pretty consistent over the last couple of years. So, and he's going to get you points when it comes to, he'll get goals. He does well with assists. So I would buy in and I guess buy low.
There was a Canucks fan who left a comment under one of our videos telling me to get lost. And I assume he will be back here again because I just don't want any piece of Elias Pettersson. He's not like some guys want to take him as a top 10 pick. He's not. There's too much inconsistency in his game. When he is good, he is fantastic. But when he is not, it is like it's feast or famine with him. And we saw that last year towards the playoffs. It just wasn't working for him. And now he's off to a slow start. And, Vancouver went out and, they added Jake DeBrusk and they still got Brock Besser there and JT Miller and the power play is still there. So like he's getting all the opportunities. It's just not working. I don't want to invest the capital and what it would take to get him. I don't, especially on where you drafted him. You probably took him in the first 2 rounds. So you're not going to sell like a ton on him to start. And you probably shouldn't if you took him. It's kind of one of those things where you're almost handcuffed to him and you're like, hey, we got to ride this wave out. So I just want nothing to do with him. I don't want to go near him with his extremely long stick. I want to stay far away from him and let him figure it out because there's just too much inconsistency there. There are no shortage of fantasy hockey players I can get that are inconsistent that won't cost me what it would cost to acquire him via trade. So just go out there, skate circles. I don't know, figure it out. But right now, I would not be feeling good.
Reason why I'm optimistic on him is 89 points last year, 102 the year before that. And I get it, the feast or famine when if you're in a week-long league, there are weeks where he'll win you a week by yourself, and there are weeks where he literally will contribute 0 points. He's been playing with Jake DeBrusk, maybe a little bit. It's only 3 games in, maybe still developing chemistry there. And I know that people say preseason, but preseason is more about figuring out who's going to take those like bottom last couple of spots on your roster and messing around with line combos, but you don't really get a ton of time. It takes time once you get in the regular season. So I would be patient with Pettersson. But I see what you're saying too, Chris. Because he's streaky, sometimes you can't have those weeks where he's not giving you anything, even if he does balance it out by giving you a ton the following week or 2 weeks later.
89 points in 82 games, though, is not like, to me, it's not first round value player. Like
he's
that's
a second
like,
round guy
at best. And like, does he throw his weight around? No. Does he block shots? No. Does he take a ton of shots? No. So they're like, if he's not racking up points, what else is he doing? Like that's for me at least why like I stayed far away from him in fantasy for obvious reasons. I think like JT Miller is obviously the much better player, but Pettersson still, he's young, he still has an opportunity, like he's got all that there, but like fantasy hockey is today, at least for redraft league. So I'm not touching him. I will, like, if he figures it out, great. Hate tweet me directly, but if he doesn't, don't be surprised why.
Let's be honest. You didn't pick him out of spite because this guy told you to get lost on the show. Come on.
I mean, look, man, Canuck fans are feeling good about themselves, as they should. This team barely got by the Nashville Predators, and they don't have Thatcher Demko, and they just kind of look mid to start the year. They kind of just look there. So,
well, they better play good. I got a lot invested in my first round pick in JT Miller and Brock Besser.
I'll see. The Canucks, I think they have a lot of reasons to not be off to, so we'll see what happens. When Demko does return at some point, and Dakota Joshua comes back and all that good stuff. So we've got one more player to go here before we talk a little Colorado Avalanche. Brandt Clark, who is taking Drew Doughty's place on the Kings power play. Chris talked about guys that are sheltered before. They're certainly going to shelter him. But he's gotten off to a pretty good start this year. He's got 4 assists with 3 of them on the power play. So I think, he's a guy that if, you need a source of power play points and you got a spot for a defenseman that you could plug in, at least while Doughty's hurt, could certainly do a lot worse.
Well, he only played in 16 games last year, and he already has the same amount of assists that he did last year that he has now. So he's off to a good start. If he could score some goals, even better.
Yeah, obviously the loss of Drew Doughty is the catalyst here for Clark. He's getting all those opportunities, and nobody's going to challenge him for it. Like, I can't think of another defenseman who's going to take his spot. So this is his spot, and I'm not really surprised that he's having success on the power play either. Like, that's where he might get the majority of those minutes. It's easy to shelter players like that. He's got the offensive skill. He doesn't have to go out there and play top minutes against the opposing team's best players. Let guys like Gavrikov figure that out. Let the rest of the group, right, the Kopitars and everybody, the Denos, work on that. Let him get some easier matchups, control his ice time. He doesn't have to be playing 26 minutes a night. Just give him what he can handle to start. Let him, kind of like he is now, build up that confidence, feel like he belongs, feel like he's the guy who's quarterbacking it. And then as the season goes on, give him a little bit of responsibility, see how we do with it. A little bit more, see how it comes with it. But you should have been drafting Clark near the end of your drafts. So if he is on a waiver wire, you can pause the video if you're watching it later, go pick him up, and then resume, because you can't wait till the end of it.
We'll wait.
Yeah, we'll wait. It's fine. Nobody's, we're not going here. Just press pause. Go pick him up, right? Just grab him, hope he's there, and then continue on with your day. You come right back, you pick it up here, and you move on. He's not available, answer. I'm pretty sure he's not available.
Like, when people were talking about Lane Hudson as a defenseman to grab late in drafts, that was another guy that was right there too. And I'll say this: when Doughty comes back, if Clark keeps playing the way he's playing and producing at a similar rate, I don't know if you take him off that top power play unit. Yeah, maybe you shelter you. Maybe he gets less even strength minutes, but I might keep him there and either have Doughty anchor the second power play unit, or maybe you go with 2 defensemen on the back end on the power play versus having Kevin Fiala back there on the other point. But if he keeps playing this way and he's expected to be that guy for the future, I wouldn't want to disrupt that.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not taking him off that top power play. Even when Doughty comes back, give him PP2 minutes. Let him. He's a good all-around defenseman now. He's not the same player he once was, but he can still defend. So let him do that. The transition is here. It's just let Clark spread his wings. Let the young guy take over.
And Drew Doughty not being a spring chicken, a couple of less minutes a night over the course of whatever time he's got left in the regular season, if and when he does return, that adds up for the playoffs, because the Kings are still expected, maybe a wild card team, but they're still expected to be in the mix. So there we go. That is 6 players, fantasy hot and cold starts. We're doing some sort of fantasy segment every week here on Total Hockey Now, so please tune in for that. But next up here, we like to talk about, we do a deep dive on one team per week. And I know I said before we're not going to make a big deal about the Colorado, teams off to slow starts or hot starts because it's a limited sample size. But, I mean, you watch the Colorado Avalanche right now, and my God, it is bad. It is so bad right now. So let's some numbers here. First of all, their record 0-4-0 with 3 home losses. We like to talk about Colorado having an advantage at home, but not so far. -12 in goal differential, and they have allowed at least 1 goal in every period of the hockey season that they have played so far. They have yet to go one period where they could say, hey, we shut him out that period. Can't do it. Alexander Georgiev, who we all know has been, a sieve. It's amazing that he's led the league in wins the last 2 years. I can't think of another time in my life where you had a goalie lead the league in wins in 2 consecutive years that was like realistically a 15 to 20th best goalie in the league. And I'm being generous. 0-3-0, 579 goals against, 800 save percentage. Justice Anunin, I know he only got out there for 1 game, 2 games and started 1, wasn't much better for him. And yes, they're missing some guys from the lineup. I know that. They're missing Landeskog, Nichushkin, Arturi Lehkonen, Jonathan Drouin, et cetera, et cetera. Devin Taves, I know, is day-to-day right now. But Chris mentioned, I think it was on a Slapshots or on this, that he thinks the Colorado Avalanche are going to miss the playoffs this year. I had to make a bold prediction. And, again, it's early in the season, but everything that can look wrong and is going wrong in Colorado is right now.
I think Chris has been predicting, this whole Colorado team for a while now, even going back to last season. They almost caught us, right, going to the playoffs, and Georgiev got off to like kind of a good couple of game start, and then he's back to being the person that he is. I mean, you mentioned, Adam, that he had the most wins. That just shows you how good the team in front of him really was. And now with all these injuries, and do we really count Landeskog because he hasn't played in who knows how long? I mean, I it's hard for me to count him. The other guys, yeah, Lehkonen, Nichushkin, and all those guys, yeah. But Georgiev, man, woo, he's on a one-way ticket out of Colorado soon. And didn't you draft his backup?
I did. And like I said, he didn't look, but right now there's so many problems up front that, I mean, they're still going to give Georgiev, we're kind of seeing what he is. Whereas Anunin, he's still got some, you got to still see what he can do.
Okay. If you drafted Alexander Georgiev, I feel no pain for you. You understood what you were getting into, okay? You knew. And don't come crying now saying you didn't. You knew. This man is a fraud. He is the king of frauds. He is the president of the fraud club. He can't stop an eclipse. The homie is lost on the ice. He is like, those are not good numbers. Colorado not being able to win at home is a serious problem because for the longest period of time, it was always real tough to go into Colorado and win games because of altitude and this and that and last change and whatnot. They have looked miserable. Georgiev's 579 goals against average is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. I know they have injuries. Cry me a river. Every team does. Colorado doesn't have the depth, and we knew this. We knew this going in before all these other players started to get injured and whatnot. This team is in shambles. They've given up 25 goals in 4 games. There's no chance you're winning hockey games with that kind of goal give. Like they are giving up 6.25 goals per game. Their power play is operating at 50%. So, water continues to be wet there. Their penalty kill is at 54. So something is like, this team can't defend. They can't. And Colorado's always been like one of those teams that they just go. You just let them go. They just run and they just go out there and they just pound away at their opponents. This team has to change the way they play because they can't let Georgiev, he can't stop a beach ball. I wouldn't trust him right now to babysit like a rock because I feel like he would screw it up. He is miserable. He is miserable. And Colorado's got to change this like yesterday, or this team is going to be out of a playoff spot, like nowhere near a playoff spot. And it's going to be mid-November. Like that's how bad this is. Naturally, right? Regression will come back to the mean, right? At some point, he'll bounce back a little bit because he's got to fight. Like he gave his goals against average before last night's game was 675.
Oh, so it got better.
It got better, and he still gave up, 5 goals? So imagine giving up 5 goals, your goals against average going down. That's the hole he is in. But he is a fraud, and we all knew this. So if you took him, don't come crying to me. We know this. He's not good. But, everybody was looking at his wins and thinking Colorado was going to be fine. I guess some of you, when you loaded the Daily Faceoff website, it got cut off and it only showed the first 2 lines. And then you were like, oh, I can't see the depth. I mean, this team is in shambles right now. I don't know how they get out of it.
We talked to, one of the things we talked about in a lot of our mock drafts and previews is like players that you avoid. There's no chance I'm taking Georgiev before like round 10, round 11. If somehow he's still sitting out there and I need another goalie, sure. But yeah, like you can't trust him to put up. And yeah, fine, he led the league in wins, but there's other places you can get wins. But it was a facade. And yeah, we know the goaltending is bad, but also the lack of offensive production is bad. Yes, the goalie's to blame for a -12 goal differential. And sure, McCarr's got a goal and 7 assists. McKinnon a goal and 6 assists. Rantanen 4 goals, 3 assists. Casey Middlestat 3 goals. And after Ross Colton, that's it. Nobody else is doing anything. They are so top heavy. That's like that can't be sustained either. I mean, they've made it work for a couple of years, but I think it's finally getting to a point where the well is starting to run dry with the lack of depth. We talked about them having one of the better blue lines, but I feel like it's quickly not becoming one of the better blue lines in the league.
Also, Wally G has him in our fantasy league. Wally, I'm going to need a 3-page essay as to why you took him. You do have Jake Oettinger, so you did do something right. And then you paired him with Alexander Georgiev. And your third goalie is Freddie Anderson. Freddie Anderson is what he is. I think we all understand that. But man, like some of you went out there to grab Georgiev, and it was interesting as to how you thought this would work out. So again, no crying from any Avalanche fans. I don't want you to hear, oh, it's this. Georgiev is terrible. He is miserable. You all knew this. I don't want to hear a word out of it. He needs to get better. And like, he can't even be like, if his save percentage was like 900 and only 3 goals against, that's still terrible. Like, that's not good. So even getting better is still bad. This man is lost. He is lost on the ice. You can't even trade him. Where are you sending him? Like, what part of Siberia?
And also, if you tap, what are you acquiring? With what chips?
You have to pay a first-round pick for somebody to take that deadbeat contract.
And I got to defend my boy Wally here for a second because I know he's a big Islander fan, and Ilya Sorokin was literally taking the pick before he took Georgiev. So I think he needed a goalie, and that was a panic pick that he got sniped.
Homie is going through it. Sorry, Wally. We'll send out some prescription.
The goalies that went after him were Freddie Anderson, Joseph Wall, Anthony Stolars, Linus Olmark, Luukkonen, Aiden Hill. So that was the tier of goalies that go after that. I took Darcy Kemper after that.
Damn, Wally. We'll get you some medicinal because you're going to have a lot of sleepless nights.
I think Chris is right. Aiden Hill needs a little more respect when it comes to these drafts. That sucks that to fall all the way there, someone takes Georgiev. Woo.
I mean, not to the extent of Joseph Wall, but with Hill, you worry about health a little bit. But he's also playing in front of a team that is very rarely going to have a bad defensive night. So
he even went past Demko. Went past him as well.
Yeah, Demko, at least, there was the mystery injury concern to have his stock fall. But yeah, I think this is the last draft where we'll probably see Alexander Georgiev being taken at all, let alone being taken early on just because Colorado gets wins. And maybe if you're in a league where wins are valued heavily, you take them. But he took him 67, definitely panic. See, there you go. Faulty synapse. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, he's a big Islander fan. So the fact that Sorokin went right before,
that's killer.
Yeah, because A, you need a goalie there. B, you're going to get your guy, and then he gets taken, and it's like, shit, I got to grab a goalie. We've all been there. It's happened to every one of us. Like, oh, what do I do? What do I do?
Adam spent the better part of every mock draft being on the wrong side of the defenseman run. So it's just a shame that it happened when it really counted for Wally, because that is like, that's the first thing I did was I went to go look at our league and be like, who is the unfortunate soul that has this player now? And yeah, I was like, oh, that's unfortunate.
And when just to go back to Colorado for a minute, the thing that doesn't help them is you look at that division. We know Dallas is a good team. I know Nashville's off to a slow start, but there's chemistry that still needs to probably be found and developed there to a degree. Winnipeg's going to be a tough team. Utah has come out of the gate strong. We know they were going to be a better team this year. Chicago's really the only easy out in that division. I'm not even going to call Minnesota an easy out because maybe they're not a playoff team, but they're not going to be an easy team to play against. Similar for St. Louis. So, clock's ticking. And yeah, we've seen Edmonton come back from the dead, in November to make it all the way to the Stanley Cup. And yes, they've got a Nate McKinnon to, Connor McDavid, but they've got a Mikko Rantanen to a Leon Draisaitl. But I mean, Edmonton at least has a little more depth. And Stuart Skinner, say what you want about him, also not off to a great start, but I would take Skinner a million times over Georgiev right now in any format or in just a real hockey game.
Is Ville Husso available still? Maybe he can show up in Colorado. Colorado should just have open practice. First goalie that can show up and stop 10 pucks gets to start at this point. I mean, they need something to happen.
I mean, it's interesting you said that name because, I mean, Detroit did waive him the other day, didn't they?
I just don't know if Colorado has the money. Like, they're walking around right now with like a beat up 92 Civic, the muffler's dragging on the floor, and they have exactly 46 cents in their wallet. So it's just not a good time to be a Colorado Avalanche fan.
No, it is not. I mean, and just bringing up their contract situation here. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you got Nate McKinnon at, they are just.
Yeah. That's the reaction most of us have when we went to go look at Colorado's cap situation, see how can they fix this? And we went, oh, this is like, that's one of those like higher algebra, questions when you're in math and you look at it and you're like, what is this? Did I learn any of this? You're like, where do I even start? That's the Colorado Avalanche right now. You're like, what hole do I plug first? Because they are sinking and they are sinking quick.
31st in cap space, by the way, with $0. So okay. The problem needs to, sometimes you have to look within to solve the problem. That is what the Colorado Avalanche are going to have to do here. But
I don't want to be in a management position there because I like where do you start? Where do you start? What problem do you want to fix first? You need depth. You don't have money. Your goaltender is a flaming pile of dog. Like where do you go from here? Like you can't just look at the guys in the room and be like, hey, you got to change. Yes, some of those core players could play better, but I still don't have the depth. Teams are walking into Colorado and then slaughtering them. Like, you don't do that. You don't walk into Colorado and just have your way.
Listen, everything, that the Blue Jackets have been dealing with is awful, but they came in and beat the crap out of Colorado. That can't happen.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable. It's unacceptable for the Colorado. I have been pounding the Alexander Georgiev over 2.5 goals. If you got some space on the line of credit for the mortgage, I mean, you could probably become a billionaire for the next couple of weeks if you're just hammering that away, because I don't see this being solved anytime soon.
You have a better chance of Georgiev scoring a goalie goal than you do of his GAA going below 2.5.
Georgiev might end up in my Monday league, and I don't know if he'll get a spot.
I mean, I hope so. He might be a nice guy. Maybe, he's a good teammate.
I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure he pays his taxes. I'm sure he loves his family. He does great charity work. But when it comes to doing his job, through the first 4 games, he has demonstrated that he can't. I was shocked that Colorado went back to him yesterday against Boston. I immediately hammered the over Georgiev 2.5 goals. I stopped what I was doing and I placed my wager and I said, I can spend this money before I even get it. I think it's safe. I did. I went to the dollar store and I got some snacks and everything. And it was way before Colorado got slaughtered.
And this is one of those situations where, like, okay, maybe change the coach. No, you could bring in no coach is fixing this. The problem is not Jared Bednar. This is now Joe Sakic's, he's got to get out the graphing calculator and figure out his cap situation. That's where we're at right now. I had to go to summer school for math one year because once I got to a certain point, it was all beyond me. But,
that big TI-83 plus calculator?
Yes, it was. Once we got to sine, cosine, and tangent, that's when my brain checked out on math. I'm like, I'm never going to need this. Oh, you might. No. I can promise you I am never going to need this.
If somebody comes up to me and says, can you calculate the parabola? I'm gonna need I'm going to need extra therapy because that was just a time in math. I've never used the calculation of the parabola in my day to day, but I still know how to calculate for H and K. Thanks, math teachers.
Parabola is a very good tool song, but useless otherwise in everyday life. So there you go for guys like us. But there we go. So Colorado Avalanche, I'm not ready to dead and bury them. They're done for the season. It's still a lot of time to go. But all of those errors that we've been talking about with Colorado over the last couple of years, and they've managed to dodge them and overcome them. They're there now, and they got to. The problem has to be solved now. Like you can't kick the can down the road anymore. The can is here. Now it's time to figure it out.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, it's not just them and their undoing. There are a lot of teams that are ready to make the next step and that have improved, that are possible playoff contenders. So, it's a whole lot of things, not just their injuries, not just Georgiev playing bad, but other teams ready to jump right out in front of them.
One more comment to get to before we get out of here and get to what we're watching tonight. Faulty Synapse talking about the panic picks. He panicked at 74 when Uyghur went 72. I didn't love my Morgan Riley pick. Could have grabbed Sergachev. Shaking my head. Well, I'm glad you didn't take. I mean, at that point, I was out on Sergachev in that draft because I had I forget so many drafts I can't remember. But yeah, Sergachev would have been a better pick than Riley. But like Morgan Riley as a panic pick in the 70s still is not like you still know you're going to get your points out of him. You still going to get power play out of him. So you can do worse in that situation for sure. Morgan Riley's been a guy that I've been taking in a lot of leagues over the last few years and just letting him fall to where I feel safe because I know what I'm going to get out of him.
Yeah.
Didn't we say Uyghur was going to be a little overrated?
I mean, he's the top guy on a bad team in terms of the Calgary blue line. And he's still, he's a stat filler. He goes across the scoreboard.
Slow start for Uyghur. Yes, I agree. But here's what I would compare that to. Panic picking, like it's not panic picking Morgan Riley over Sergachev. Panic picking would have been taking like today, I don't know, like Carl Alzner instead of Morgan Riley or Sergachev. And then being like, oh, I think he could make a comeback. That's what the panic pick would have been. This is not the same. Like, I get like Morgan Riley is what he is. I get that. And maybe Sergachev has a little bit more upside because he blocks shots. He throws his weight. Utah's been a good team. Sean Dursey got hurt, so that bumps Sergachev's value now. There's no way you would have known that at that point. So it's not as bad as you think it is. But taking Alexander Georgiev, you knew. Like, if you didn't know, I have some beans I would like to sell you, and I promise they can take you to the moon.
I got a bigger question, though. Did you just get back from a trip in a time machine to like 2010? How did Carl Alzner get in your head?
Carl Alzner's contract recently, I think, finally was off the books for Montreal or something, because that was a great signing. But when I think of mediocre defensemen, Carl Alzner just immediately came to mind. That was the first one. Sorry, Carl. Again, I'm sure he's a great guy. He was great when he was here. He was great in the minors. He was, full out all pro, but not very good at his job.
There you go. And we got State of Survival as checking in as usual. Wanted to do another mock draft. What about Puck Doku? Well, if you're going to watch Puck, if you want some Puck Doku, then you're going to have to go over to the Slapshot podcast, because that's Chris has got that under control over there. New episode just came out yesterday, I believe, on a Wednesday this week.
It did. Blame Milo. I didn't do a Puck Doku this week. I know. I had other fish to fry. Specifically, I fried Georgiev on Wednesday, so I feel like I'm getting a double dip here because I'm frying him today as well. But we did so well out of I didn't want to let people down right away. You know what I mean? So I wanted them to savor it for a little bit. But I promise I will do Puck Doku again. I just didn't want to fall completely off the board.
Yeah.
So, but there was other good stuff that was there. There's just no watching me struggle by myself for 15 to 17 minutes.
You had to flip Georgiev over and get him toasted on both sides.
Exactly. We had to flip the coin, see if there was something good. That was before I fried him before he lost it against Boston, but I knew damn well he was. So that worked out perfectly fine. That one could be evergreen. That we could post that in 6 months from now. Georgiev's probably still getting fried. So
probably
good for
if
him.
He's still getting opportunities at that point. Maybe Colorado comes to their senses and he's phased out. Now, before we get out of here, Thursday night's a busy night in the NHL. I want to talk about what we're watching tonight. So there we go. You can see on the screen, you got the Kings and the Canadiens, Devils, Senators, Golden Knights and Lightning, Canucks, Panthers, Stars, Caps, Sabres, Blue Jackets, Rangers, Wings. A lot of early games tonight. Islanders, Blues, Oilers, Preds, Sharks, Blackhawks, and Flyers, Kraken. For me, if Celebrini was healthy, I would have loved to have the top 2 overall picks go head-to-head with the Sharks and the Blackhawks. That not being the case, talk about the Oilers and Predators have a bumpy start to start the season. Both have high expectations. It'll be interesting to see how two teams with a lot of offensive firepower kind of handle each other while both are kind of struggling right now. So that's the one I'm looking forward to.
I'm going to watch Sam Montembeault make his chase for the Vezina. I'm excited to see the Kings looked terrible against Toronto, so I expect them to, I expect whoever starts for them, whether it's Rittich or Copley, to look like, Patrick Waugh on a random Thursday here in October. If not, I am going to watch a little bit of the Oilers and Preds because somebody's got to win that game. And I want to see who does it. And I'll probably doze off to San Jose and Chicago because nothing will put you to sleep like watching two mediocre hockey teams.
There you go.
I'll be honest. You guys know what I'm watching already. Game 4 of the championship series. But outside of that, if I am watching any of these games, I'm going to go with the Golden Knights and the Lightning. Both teams are off to a good start. Mark Stone has 8 points. You gotta enjoy Mark Stone while he's on the ice right now. So for that, and you got Kucherov off to a good start. Whoever drafted him, congratulations. Great on that. But that's the game outside of obviously Devils and Ottawa, I guess. But I like these two teams, and I want to see more. I want to see more from them.
Another good one. Stars look to remain undefeated in Washington tonight. I got a feeling that could be a little bit of a matchup problem for Dallas, and maybe that game's a little tighter than they'd like, but that'll be a good one to watch. State of Survival wants to know which team will be the last team to register a regulation win.
Colorado. Colorado. Is there a number for that? Can I bet the mortgage on them?
So you got Nashville, you got Colorado, and Vancouver and San Jose. Oh boy.
You would think it would be San Jose, right? Like logic says the worst team last year will be the worst team again this year. But no, it's Colorado. They like San Jose has an opportunity tonight to not be. That's to me, it's Colorado. They're a mess.
So the Sharks have the Blackhawks tonight, and then they're at Winnipeg tomorrow, and then they come home for Colorado on Sunday. Could you imagine both teams being winless going into that game? And you have the Avalanche and the Sharks going for their first win.
Are they in San Jose for that one?
That one is back in Colorado.
Oh my god!
No, that one's in San Jose. You're right. That one's in San Jose.
Because I was like, if San Jose goes into Colorado and beats them in Colorado, we may have to relegate the Colorado Avalanche, send them straight to the American Hockey League. Like, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I don't know. I don't know if San Jose can really beat Chicago, but to be fair, it's Chicago, right? So whatever. Vancouver at one point will win a hockey game.
They've got Florida tonight, Philly on Saturday, and then the Blackhawks on Tuesday.
Yeah, they might be able to get past Philly on Saturday. They didn't put up a very good showing last time. Nashville, like at some point, they're going to figure it out. Here's the problem with Nashville. It's not that they're like 6 goals in 3 games is not great. Giving up 14 is not better, but it's still 14. Like, it's not terrible. They're not getting slaughtered. They're just not winning. And with all the guys and paychecks that were handed out this summer, like, you don't hand out that kind of money to be 0-3 off the rip, you know?
I'm gonna go with the Predators here because they got the Oilers tonight at home, but then they've got a Saturday matinee game against the Red Wings. That is a perfect spot. If you ever get the win tonight, there it is right there. That's what I'm gonna go with. The Preds get it first.
No, which team is the last to get it?
Oh, the last. Oh, so the last is the question. That's right. So we're gonna take the Preds out of the equation. Vancouver, like you said, they could get Philly on Saturday. Let's take them out of the equation. They lost to them at home last week, a little bit of a revenge factor there. So it's really coming down to the San Jose Sharks or the Colorado Avalanche. And I really hope it comes down to that game on Sunday.
What a time to be alive, eh?
Yes. Well, that's the answer to the question. Wishful thinking. Sunday, October 20th at 5:00 Pacific time, live from the Shark Tank. Avalanche Sharks. Loser is the last team to get a regular. Now, again, maybe it goes to overtime and they don't get a regulation win. That streak, that streak could go on too. But yeah, those are the teams looking for their last victories there.
If it lasts that long till Sunday, will
you
there
imagine?
be a appearance from Adam at the arena?
I wish. I can't get there this Sunday. My first game, a Sharks game this year, will be Black Friday afternoon matinee against the Seattle Kraken.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Going as a family.
Okay.
Sweet.
There we go.
That's fair. It's good news, Colorado fans, though. The Broncos will lose tonight, so you have a couple of days to let the sting go away before you watch San Jose beat Colorado. Because Colorado on the road last year was not the same team that they are at home. So, yeah.
You're that confident? Is Spencer Rattler starting for the Saints tonight? Are you that confident in the Saints?
I am not watching a single moment of Thursday NFL football. There's way too many hockey games on to my liking. There's enough disappointment in hockey. I don't need to be watching two mediocre offenses go at each other. I hope that game finishes 3-0 for nobody.
Yeah, Thursday's a big hockey night. So unless it's like the Jets are playing or it's the rare, really good Thursday night football matchup, it's tough to get away from hockey.
The only people watching it should be Denver fans and Saints fans. That's it. There's no other reason to be watching that game.
For a league that is supposed to be America's league or the best sport in America right now, they do put on some piss poor matchups on Thursdays and Mondays, and yeah.
The reason they do that is every team is supposed to get one nationally televised game, whether that's a Sunday night game, Monday night game, Thursday night game, or like a Fox game of the week kind of game. So you can kind of bury a lot of those on a Thursday night because one rating strategy you can do, and only the NFL can do this because people watch football. It could be the two worst teams in the league and it'll still get a decent rating and beat a lot of other things. So on a Thursday night, you don't want to waste the Cowboys Steelers kind of thing because those are going to get good ratings if you played it at Tuesday at 3 p.m. So you can get a decent rating out of this Monday night. Let's use the Cardinals and the Chargers for example. That doesn't have a lot of sizzle factor there, but so on Monday Night Football, it'll get a decent rating because it's football.
I'm glad I'm no longer have to subject myself to watching below average football because now I can watch hockey.
And that's why October's great because and then you can kind of just cherry pick the games you want to watch.
Yeah,
there we go. We got another comment in the chat here. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one. And Faulty Synapse is right. It's time to get out of here. But don't forget, like we mentioned earlier, you got the Subway to Shea podcast. What's the next thing coming up there with the Mets coverage? You going to be live tonight?
Live space for the post-game show will be coming out. Next podcast will be once this series is over. Hopefully, it's for a win.
Okay. There we go. Subway to Shea there. Slapshot podcast. We talked about new episode came out yesterday. Rip and Riff as well. New episode came out yesterday. Jared and I talk about the Devontae Adams trade amongst the other things. Rips and baseball and football cards. It's a good old time over there at Rip and Riff. So check that out. And of course, you can get the Total Hockey Now anytime, totalhockeynow@gmail.com. Or you see us scrolling on the bottom of the screen there below. YouTube, Twitter, /X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook. Total Hockey Now is there for all of them. But for at Ant Rivera 86 and for at Fuzzy Chris 91, I am at Pucking Thoughts. Be back with you next Thursday with an all episode of Total Hockey Now on the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel.